Okay, this is the more fun part. So I listed 7 things you really want to avoid doing. So this is mostly stuff that I've kind of experienced myself and things you just generally want to avoid. Very bad things. Okay, so we talked about this earlier when we were talking about being concise. So business jargon, when used unnecessarily, is really bad. A lot of people like me that meet up with a lot of startups and see a lot of these materials over and over, there's sort of these buzzwords that come on over and over. Like if I see the word predictive analytics for big data in the same sentence next to each other, like those are both things that are real. Predictive analytics and big data are real. When you put them right next to each other and you say that over and over, like there are things where that's real, but more often than not, that's just like jargon that's intended to make it seem like you're doing more complicated things than you actually are. There's another billion sort of examples, but just like stuff that comes straight out of business textbooks that just talks about like, you know, marketing and targeting strategies and just all this excessive jargon. It's a really big turnoff. The more you can talk about, well, already talked about this. If you can talk about your company in layman's terms, it's great. I use Uber as an example. So you could talk about Uber and you could talk about it's a logistics platform and it's like part of the sharing economy and it's all this sort of crazy back end. But a really powerful way to talk about that company is to say, it's an app that hails a taxi for you, and it's half as much as a taxi. Like that's a much more powerful way to talk about what your company does, which is why I kind of just tell people to avoid the jargon if possible. So not every venture person is going to agree with me on this. So this is more of my personal take, but I really don't like hearing from entrepreneurs who are really overeager to talk about exit strategies and like how the company's going to sell, who's going to buy your company, how soon are you going to IPO. If we go back to the dating analogy, like this is like on the first date, you're already planning the divorce. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse. Kind of what we were talking about earlier. The appropriate way to approach this is the right amount of critical thought, but not totally over-engineering it. So very commonly, a venture capitalist person might say to you, okay, like who is going to acquire your company? Who are the plausible people that you can get an exit from? It's good to have thought about that a little bit. You could say, oh, maybe like Salesforce or Oracle, like those are plausible people. But mapping out and engineering your company from day one to be acquired or be sold or whatever, at least in my opinion, is a really suboptimal way to build your company and sort of shows a predisposition towards short-term thinking rather than actually building a company that's going to have value over the long run. So I would just avoid bringing this up unless you're asked directly about it. Again, just my opinion. This is another big one, so deflecting responsibility. Are you guys all the CEOs of your company, or any of you like is that how it's going to be? Like, are you like the technical co-founder with another CEO? Like,
so those are in groups, we haven't decided.
Oh, okay. Okay, well generally the person talking to investors is the CEO, so like that's kind of my assumption going forward in this conversation. If you're the CEO and you are talking about like what are sales going to be this quarter, or like when is the product going to ship, acting in any way that suggests that you don't own the outcome of that question is a very bad thing. I met a CEO I think 3 months ago, and their company was further along. We were talking about doing their Series B, and we basically asked, okay, like how's the quarter going? Like how are sales coming in? And we said, okay, are you going to make your number before the quarter's over? Are you going to hit your revenue target? And then the CEO basically said, well, you know, the VP of sales is on that, so you know, we'll see how he does. And that's just a really bad thing you don't want to say, because as the CEO, you ultimately own, and again, not just the CEO, but if you're in the leadership team of the company, you own the success of the company in general. Basically claiming that your employees are responsible for really big picture outcomes is just kind of a bad signal to send. You want to defer to basically saying that you own everything going on in the company, especially revenues and especially product shipping.
Is that because you want to see accountability, or because you think it lacks leadership to not run it that way? It's
both. Like, I mean, you think about sports, right? So if you're the, you know, you're hiring like your head football coach or something, right? Like you want to hire, like the kind of leadership you want is where when the team succeeds, the coach is basically saying, oh, it was all the players. You know, you defer or you deflect praise, but you take in responsibility, right? So you say, oh, we lost, like it's on me. So it's generally poor leadership, in my opinion, to just say that the key thing that our company is trying to do, which is build product and sell it, is anything but the responsibility of the people running the ship.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another one, I don't know if you guys talk about this at all, but NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. Unless you do something super hardcore, like hard sciencey, or like you're building a pharmaceutical company, you generally just don't want to ask investors to sign an NDA. It's kind of an amateurish thing. The main reason, honestly, is that investors or VCs that see a lot of people every quarter don't have the bandwidth to like hire lawyers to vet these things and sign them. Like they would rather just basically not talk to you than have to figure out how to do the NDA. This sort of dovetails with the comment before about we were talking about the pitch deck, and how the pitch deck is basically it's basically a tool to allow the people that work for the venture people to work for you. This is the same sort of thing. Like it's by introducing the NDA, which is sort of the equivalent of not having a deck at all, you're introducing friction into the process, and you're basically slowing down the ability for the people in the fund to work for you, which is just counterproductive to your purposes. This is sort of tactical, but generally a good thing just to have one person on the phone at once. As an investor, it's kind of a pain when there's like 3 people on the phone. You don't know who's talking. You have to remember the bios for everyone. Like, oh, like was that the CFO? Like, was that Jeff? Like, who? Especially if they're all the same gender, it's like really hard to tell who everyone is on the phone. So, if possible, stick with one person. That also allows you to have a more concise message. If you do an in-person meeting, there's a lot better opportunities to showcase your team. But for the more early calls, one person is best. So by groveling, I basically just mean like overpraising the person you're talking to. I mean, you don't want to be in a meeting like with Mark and Mathieson, like you're a visionary, you're amazing, like oh my God, you invented the internet. Like you just want to treat people, and this is kind of one of my general themes. Like everyone is just, all of you guys, like the Drapers, like everyone around here. I mean, we're all just people. Like no one deserves any more respect than anyone else. So you don't want to go into conversations kind of presuming that other people are just that much smarter or that much like, more brilliant than you are. We're all just kind of figuring this out as we go.
Actually, for the NDA part, I have a question. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs saying like there's a lot of VC has entrepreneur in residence, and what they do is just like.
Sorry, say that again. Entrepreneurs in residence.
Entrepreneur in residence. So basically, those people are the ones who like got advice from the VC about what you should do. Maybe like this is a good idea. You just go for it, and I will give you the money. Usually, those kind of ideas are from the checks that other entrepreneurs send to them. So I was wondering, like, what is your opinion about like the VCs like disclosing all those informations to their entrepreneur residents?
So, yeah, I mean, I haven't met that many EIRs, so I've only met a couple. We don't have one, so I can't really comment like on that practice. Like I know that people are worried about, or people starting companies are worried about getting their ideas taken and shuffled to these EIR folks. I don't know enough to say whether that's a real concern or not. I would say in general, the benefit that you get from sharing your ideas and giving people an opportunity to talk about what you're doing and introduce you to people that can help you generally outweighs the risk of having your idea taken. Just because even if someone takes your idea, they still have to build a team and execute on it, right? So if you've got an early start on it, you still have an advantage there, generally. There probably are some exceptions to what I'm saying, so I don't want to do a blanket statement, but I think in general, people that are willing to be open and evangelize for their ideas and what they're doing, I think generally tend to perform better than people that are secretive about their ideas. On the whole, I'm sure there are exceptions to that. Last one. So I call this anti-groveling. So it's basically the opposite of like groveling to your venture people, which is basically presuming that the person that you're talking to on the phone is a complete waste of your time. There's a lot of, if you read like blog posts for entrepreneurs, there's kind of this line of thought, which is that like you need to bypass the associate as quick as possible. You need to get to partners because there's the ones who can. Have people told you guys this? Like the ones who can make the investment decisions. Like get past people like me as quickly as possible. And like that's fine. I totally get it. Like, and it's totally right. Like I can't generally make investment on my own. You need to hitch your wagon to a partner. That's totally true. But when you're on the phone with me, I'm generally the person in a position to be the biggest advocate for you possible. So coming off like, I got an email the other week, and this person basically said, you know, if you can put me in touch with someone who actually has decision-making authority so we can just get on with this, that would be great. And I was like, wow, that's not really showing a lot of respect for the person you're talking to. So just strike a balance between trying to get to people who are able to make decisions while at the same time showing respect for the people that can help you along the way.